Thanks for joining us here on Fox 10. I'm Chief Meteorologist Jason Smith with an update on newly formed tropical depression number 2 in the northern Gulf of Mexico. It's not really moving much right now, and we're not really alarmed with this one. It is creating the potential for some rip currents at area beaches, but most of the action just offshore, and this thing is about to start heading to the south. Now, as of the 4 o'clock advisory, it's a tropical depression, could become a tropical storm overnight, motion west-northwest at 2. It's about to start heading southward, and that'll really start happening by tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, and it'll start developing as a potential tropical storm and then weakening some as we head into Saturday and Sunday. What's left of it, if it still holds together, could end up around the western tip of Cuba. Here is your futurecast, and you can see some spotty showers around the area this evening. Those are pretty much going to be out of the picture overnight. And we may be waving goodbye to the rain for a while. Some of the model guidance does suggest a few pop-up showers tomorrow afternoon in our area, but all in all, we're trending drier with the forecast, especially as we head into the weekend. Watch out for those dangerous rip currents at the beaches tomorrow. Water's warm and temperatures are hot, but not good. Too rough out there. A high risk of rip currents tomorrow, medium risk Saturday, a lower risk on Sunday. Here's the forecast. Temperatures are soaring tomorrow, getting very close to 90 degrees. We'll start out mild in the morning, but by, say, around 10 or 11 o'clock, we're in the 80s and getting close to 90 tomorrow afternoon. The 90s look like they want to be here to stay as we move into the new month of June. Temperatures in the low 90s for our highs. Overnight lows around 70. Next week, we could see some isolated showers, but all in all, looks like the heat building as we head into the month of June. And coming up on Next Weather, we'll dive into hurricane season with information from our team of meteorologists. Michael White has information on the impacts of storm surge, and Nicholas Herboso explains how we track tropical disturbances. Those stories are coming up.
Can I play? Sure, but you need to bring your own truck. That's not a problem.
The Fox 10 Storm Tracker Fleet, taking you live to more places, covering the Gulf Coast like no one else can. Unrivaled experience, unparalleled severe weather coverage.
I think I need a bigger sandbox.
With hurricane season officially here, you have to start thinking ahead about the types of hazards that come with these storms. One of the biggest is storm surge. Meteorologist Michael White has more on this.
I'm meteorologist Michael White for Next Weather, broadcasting from home, and it's time to talk all about storm surge, something that is a very dangerous and deadly threat when it comes to tropical storms and hurricanes. When I first got the job at Fox 10, about almost 15 years ago, one of the first things Jason Smith asked me was, how familiar are you with storm surge? I told him, well, I knew what it was, but he made sure I understood that for the Gulf Coast, it is a very underestimated but very deadly threat, and something that we have to make sure more people are educated about. And that's what we're going to talk about on this video of Next Weather. So, for example, when we see a front come through on a spring day, a fall day, and we have an aggressive south wind, and that south wind comes at high tide, we can end up with flooding on the causeway. That's a look at Felix's, and we see that happen all the time. If we get an aggressive south wind at high tide, we're going to see that causeway flood. It will happen almost every single time. Just like if we have a north wind, it blows the water right out. Storm surge is similar to that, except the wind is far more aggressive in a hurricane than what we would see ahead of a standard cold front. So storm surge, you think about the cyclone, the area of low pressure, and how that wraps counterclockwise. These cyclone winds can be deadly. The wind threats with a hurricane obviously can be devastating, but the surging water levels can also threaten life, and that's what sometimes people forget. And if you look on the image to the left where you see the cyclone, the right side, the east side of a low, is the bad side. The west side is the good side, because the west side gets the offshore wind, the east side gets the onshore wind. And that onshore wind combined with high tide can produce devastating water and can cause extreme flooding when storm surge coincides with the normal high tide. Coastal erosion, boats can be destroyed, buildings and roads damaged, homes that can be near the water can be absolutely swallowed up by that storm surge. Hurricane Ian. This was the storm surge map for Hurricane Ian. Places like Fort Myers were projecting upwards of 18 feet of storm surge. Here's an image of Ian making landfall last September. And you can see the eye of Hurricane Ian moved south of Sarasota. So that means since Sarasota was to the left of the center, place that they did not see a storm surge threat, neither did Tampa, but anyone along and east of that center did. Fort Myers was right by the eye wall. They got the brunt of it. And you can see just some of the images from Hurricane Ian, how dangerous and deadly that storm surge is. The winds are obviously horrific, but you factor in storm surge of 18 feet, and that is some very fast flooding that can devastate all businesses, homes, roadways, and by the time the water recedes, it almost looks like a completely different location than how it looked before the storm surge rolled in. So these are just a couple of images of the storm surge threat when Hurricane Ian was taking place last September. So whenever we're tracking tropical storms and hurricanes, whenever we talk about locations east of the center, we will always say that that's where the highest wind threat and the highest storm surge threat is. And you've always got to remember that if you are near water, you are going to be at the highest risk of dealing with a storm surge threat. So here's the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. Most of you are all familiar with this, that it has categories 1 through 5, and the standard wind threats increase with those categories from 1 to 5. But what you also need to pay attention to now is in the middle, where you have the storm surge threat. Storm surge of 4 to 5 feet can get you in a Category 1 hurricane. 6 to 8 feet can show up in a Category 2, 9 to 12 feet in a Category 3, 13 to 18 in a 4, and then greater than 18-foot storm surge in a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane. So the winds are obviously dangerous, but those storm surge threats cannot be underestimated. As we continue throughout the hurricane season, which it's just starting, we have a long ways to go, and the deadliest and most dangerous hurricanes don't come until August 1st. August and September are the most active months of the season. Really, there's about a 10-week window. August 1st to about October 15th, that's sort of the danger zone. And that window is where you can have very powerful hurricanes show up, the strongest storm surge, the strongest winds, and the best thing you can do, as always, is just be prepared. Have the FOX10 weather app on your device. Keep up to date with track forecasts because, as we know, they can change quickly and in a short period of time. For next weather, I'm meteorologist Michael White. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night.
The system we've been tracking in the Gulf previously had the title of Invest 90L. But what does that mean? What's an invest? Nicholas Herboso explains.
An invest is simply a naming convention used by the National Hurricane Center to keep track of areas of disturbed weather out there in the Atlantic. It's short for investigative area or area of investigation. And one of the big things that this does is initiates those computer models, those spaghetti models that you may see us use on TV for the area of disturbed weather. Now, to initiate the spaghetti models, you need a defined area, some kind of defined center, so that the models can track that center away. Remember, spaghetti models are only looking at where the center of the storm goes and not the impacts around the storm. But as you can see in this sample image, if you have the invest area, those spaghetti models can run from that area. Now, what about the naming of the invest areas? Well, it's kind of weird, but we use a number system, 90 through 99, where we start with invest 90, which is the first little disturbance of the year. We cycle all the way to invest 99, and then we cycle back to 90, and it just repeats itself over and over again. And that's just so we can keep track of the areas. But what about that little L there? Well, that stands for Atlantic. It's essentially an indicator of what ocean basin the invest areas are in. So for L for the Atlantic and E for the Eastern Pacific. So it's a simple thing, and you might hear it throughout hurricane season, but just remember, it's just a little naming convention. It doesn't mean that the storm's a tropical storm or something like an Arlene or a Brett, but it's just an area of disturbed weather. Remember, 90 through 99 with L for Atlantic, and it initiates those computer models. In the studio, Nicholas Herboso, Fox 10 News.
All right, coming up, we'll have your extended forecast.
New to the Fox 10 weather app, your 24-hour radar forecast. Be the first to see how precipitation is going to affect your plants across the Gulf Coast. Detailed hour by hour, the 24-hour radar forecast on the Fox 10 weather app. Plus the latest breaking news with the Fox 10 News app.
Got him, bro.
Stay alert with Fox 10. Prime time is Fox 10 time.
The latest on the night's top stories are first on Fox 10 News at 9.
Wrap up your day, informed and ready for the morning.
Our tropical system pulls away, and that leaves us hot and drier as we head into the weekend. Rain chances only 20% Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, mostly sunny. Isolated showers next week with highs in the low 90s. It looks like the 90s are pretty much here to stay for a while, and that happens in June. It happens a lot in the summer. It looks like we're going to get some scattered showers and storms second half of the week next week, but other than that, hotter, and the overnight lows are creeping up too. So that's the muggy air on the way for the Gulf Coast in your 10-day outlook.